Hi. It's good to have this opportunity to chat to you as members and worshippers of our church at Droitwich Methodist once again, as we are in another week of lockdown, and come Sunday the 5th, we will here in the UK have had one day of experiencing a further level of unlocking the lockdown in terms of the government guidance allowing the opening of pubs, restaurants and churches. Yes, churches. We have been included, and we realize that there are many challenges that lie ahead until we can reach a point of where we can regather safely and in a COVID-proofed way as the church. So more about that later. How are we doing? How are you doing? Well, Gail and I are reasonably well. I think we are getting through these lockdown days more successfully, I think, as we go along. We all have our ups and downs, don't we? But on the whole, I think we've found a new rhythm, and once you find that rhythm, I think things become a little easier, don't they? I don't think I would survive very well if it weren't for the walks that I try and take on a regular basis through the Lido Park, just going and wandering through all of that greenery, the feeling of space, connecting with nature, is just for me life-giving and uplifting. I find a place to clear my head, times to regain perspective, and just to feel myself filled with peace, maybe God's peace that passes understanding. At this stage, our family back home are also well, just growing all the time in age, as the grandchildren are, but all seem to be doing okay. All have kept well and continue to keep well during this time of the coronavirus. There are many challenges, I think, that face us as people today. We're faced with challenges on a national level. We are faced with challenges at a family level, community level, and we're faced with the challenges at a very personal level. And some of these challenges have been emphasized or exacerbated by the COVID experience. It hasn't been easy to deal with some of the challenges in our lives when we have felt a bit more remote than usual, when we have experienced perhaps a deeper sense of isolation and a sense of being removed from others. And yes, many of us do enjoy our own space, particularly those of us who are mostly introvert can find time with other people tiring to an extent, such that we look forward to crawling back into our little holes, into our own little spaces where we can regain perspective, where we can regain energy, and just find the strength to face the next bout and level of interaction with people and with events in life. So COVID perhaps has even been challenging for the introverts amongst us, where we haven't had that sense of the presence of others that, even if we do not engage it, can be an encouraging and a sustaining presence, a presence that just makes us feel okay. There is someone there, almost something like the background noise of the television or the radio that we leave on in the kitchen or wherever it may be in the home. That background noise of others, of life, it gives us a sense of being okay, not alone. Without that, as induced by the COVID required lockdown, we may have felt more vulnerable. We may have experienced our isolation to an even greater degree. And at times it may be that the experience has been a bit unrealistic. It's perhaps been more than what it really is because of our emotional vulnerability. And so we look forward, I'm sure many of us look forward to when we feel safer in this world. Yes, we long to get together with others. We long to browse through the shops. We long to sit in coffee shops or the pub or in restaurants. We long to be part of community in the parks. We long to be able to go to markets and shows and just mingle with other people without having to worry about our safety. Oh, if only things could be like they were. Oh, how I long for the former days of normal pre-COVID life, we might well think from time to time. Having said that, I suppose we've got to hold on to what there is to hold on to. We need to take the hope that comes our way, and we need to embrace it, and we need to internalize it, and we need to try and make something of it so as to improve our circumstances, to improve our emotional and our mental well-being. Yes, we are only experiencing an unlocking of lockdown in layers, and it's taking longer than many of us would have anticipated. And yet, as each layer is lifted, as a little bit more light and glimmer of hope peers through and comes through to us, we need to absorb that. We need to receive all the light that we can to encourage us in our journeys. I often find myself philosophizing, and I often find myself wondering, what is it that I'm hoping for that will make my life perfect? What circumstances am I anticipating to become a reality in my life such that my life will be perfect, so that I would say I have arrived and I am in a moment or in a situation that I need nothing better than in life. I have made it. Or, to use Christian language, to say I'm in heaven. I'm in heaven. Life is ideal. This is my Nevada. What is it that all of us long for and hope for that is going to make life perfect? Heaven on earth. What is it that you are waiting for in your life that is going to make your life perfect? The sense that I have, friends, is that life is not as linear as we may often be led to believe, but that life may be more circular than linear. Somehow in our Western culture, we have taken on or assumed a worldview of life being a linear journey from A to Z. And it's something that I've found different and helpful in the African culture, where life is more circular and where there is a more circular worldview when it comes to one's view of life. And so putting a few of these thoughts together, I often find myself getting back to the place of sincerely believing that heaven on earth, this Nevada experience, this life of absolute satisfaction, of being in the place that I could not be in any other place than, is not so much a place of gaining, it's not so much a position of having acquired, it's not so much a level of attainment in terms of achievement, of prizes, of notches on our belt, of the number of our children, or the balance in our bank account. but that it is a relational place. If I think of life, and if I think of being in heaven, or shall I say perfect life and being in heaven, I think of being in a place where I am in perfect harmony, in almost a Trinitarian sense of harmony, perfectly in harmony with God, with the Creator, with the universe, with life as a whole. Secondly, perfectly in relationship with my neighbor, with the rest of humankind, and I would want to say creation. And then thirdly, to stick with the Trinitarian metaphor, to be in perfect harmony with myself. Paul, in his letters to the early church, often spoke of Jesus as being the ambassador of God, Jesus being the one that brings reconciliation between God and humankind, Jesus being that one mediator between God and humankind, and thus underlining the importance of being in unity. Unity between God and humankind, unity amongst humankind and creation, and unity within our own persons, highlighting just the priority of this in the mind of God as we see expressed in Scripture and in the person of Jesus and through the apostles. And so I've got to believe, in my own simple way of looking at things, that we are in a perfectly God space and place in our lives. We are in heaven, we are in Nevada, when we are in that place of absolute oneness, that place of absolute unity with God, with the rest of creation, and with ourselves. Try and get that right, or make that on the top of your prayer list, because I think it is then that we have arrived. So, linking back just briefly to our COVID situation. When lockdown is over, I'm going to have my favorite meal. When lockdown is over, I'm going to visit these friends. When lockdown is over, I'm going to travel to wherever. When lockdown is over, when? Reminding me of Nicky Gumbel of the Alpha course, who used that one throwaway line to advertise Alpha. Is there anything more to life than this? We're looking for that extra. When this happens, I will be satisfied. I think the gospel message, the God message of our God in Christ, is that it gets no better than being at one with God through Christ as we believe as Christians, at one with our neighbor, thus loving God and loving neighbor, and then one with ourselves, loving our neighbor as much as we love ourselves. And thus this Trinitarian concept or idea of unity, which is not only modeled upon, but which is supported by those great commandments of Jesus. And so I want to encourage you, as we continue in a time of lockdown to a certain extent, as life is not yet what we might want it to be in order to make us feel better or to experience a better quality of life, just to remind us and challenge us with the truth that life can be good enough wherever we are, whatever our circumstances, if we can be at one in that Trinitarian sense of the word. God with us, God with our neighbor, and God within us. So, in drawing to a close, just one final line of thought I thought to share on briefly this week, and that is the life of the church. I found myself, particularly I suppose as a minister at times through lockdown, thinking, wow, this lockdown time, it's kind of maybe giving a message that the church isn't needed anymore. Maybe this time is showing that the world can manage without the church, and perhaps even more importantly, that we as Christians can manage without the church. And of course, just jokingly, that could be of great concern for me because that is my form of income. The church pays me and supports me to not work so that I can be a minister of the Christian faith. You might yourself have found your thoughts going along this line. You know, when this whole thing is over, will I need church anymore? I wonder if I really ever needed church. What does it give me after all? Or what does it do that I can't do on my own? I can tune into worship on television or on the radio. I can use social media and I can experience worship from my couch in my lounge with a cup of coffee in my hand and perhaps a bacon sandwich in the other. Why do I need to go to all that trouble of getting dressed and getting in my car or putting on my walking shoes and going to church? It takes so much time. A difficult question in some ways to answer, and one that I think requires more respect than a trite answer. The one thought that does occur to me in that regard is that we can never ask those questions in a vacuum. For you and me, as we ask that question today, we ask it against the background of decades of church experience. We ask it against that foundation of faith that our church life has given us. And it may only be because of that we may at this stage in our lives wonder if we couldn't manage without the church. The other thing I think is regards Jesus and God's view of the church. Does God still need the church in the world? And we know, as many who are not in the church would know, that the church hasn't always had a good track record of being God's representative in the world. The world has very often felt it would be a better place if it weren't for the church. And so it's not the reason I would say that the church is still needed, but the church does have a job to redeem itself, to restore confidence in the church and in the God of the church. I was reminded recently, someone who quoted saying that the church is the ongoing witness to the presence of God in the world. We would understand as church that is why we are here, to be a reminder to those not of faith and those of other faiths of God's presence amongst us, God with us, God incarnate, so to speak. And so from that point of view, I think there is still a lot of work to be done by the church. There is still a lot of reason for the church to exist and to have a fruitful life in the world. The church is a beacon of hope. The church is a lighthouse for direction and guidance. The church as a place of refuge and comfort. The church a place to be as we are, warts and all, accepted and loved. A church that looks forward to a future that is brighter than today. A church that believes when all is said and done, there will be love. Perfect love, in the words and the thinking of John Wesley. So as I say, you may have more questions that have come to mind with regard to the relevance or the continued relevance of church in our world and the continued relevance of church for yourself. Perhaps your thinking along those lines was kind of motivated, not necessarily motivated, but encouraged by hearing that we're thinking of perhaps being able to start some form of public worship only in September. And I can understand that. It might be discouraging to hear that. I want to say that on the other hand, we're hearing of churches who are only looking at opening in December or January. Such is the rife of red tape that one has to work through in order to assure the Methodist Church and government that we can offer worship that has been validly and credibly COVID-proofed. One of the bottom lines of the Methodist Church is do not put people at risk. Don't risk people's well-being. I would foresee us at the point, or just ahead of the point of where we do open facilities for public worship again, of signboarding our premises that these are COVID-proofed premises, and giving that sense of trust to the local community that you may visit and worship in these premises with our guarantee that you will be safe from the COVID virus. And that has to be an unqualified guarantee that we can give to everyone and anyone who comes to worship in our fold and in our context. Thus the importance of being properly prepared for this. And so as we await the time where we will once again gather, and of course becoming more and more aware that that way of gathering will be different to what we are used to, and that in itself might make people doubt or wonder whether they want to get back to church. The fact that it won't be the same might be discouraging. I want to encourage you with the thoughts that we will be the same. We will be the same people, maybe some extra, maybe a few not with us anymore. God will be the same. The gospel message that we proclaim, that we celebrate and live by, this life of grace, that will be the same. Our hopes for the future will be the same. The faith that unites us will be the same. And so there is so much going for us as church that we have not lost through this virus, and which will continue with us and remain constant through and beyond the challenges of this COVID virus. And so, dear friend, I hope I haven't waffled too much again this week. I really wanted to, if you would allow me, use this opportunity just to communicate again with you. I'm looking at the camera here, and I've got to imagine the 200 or so, or 250 people on our pastoral role, our community role, as I speak, thinking that I might be getting into your homes or dining rooms or lounges, that you're seeing me. And it's a great privilege for me, a great opportunity to retain some connectivity with you in this time. I hope and pray that as meager and as simple as it is, it may be of some benefit to you, that it may in some ways be familiar to you, that it may encourage you, that it may sustain your hope, that it may be a reminder of our church family and the faith which we hold dear. And so, dear friend, until next week, God bless you. Keep the faith, stay the course, and remember, as John Wesley said on his deathbed, the best of all is that God is with us. God bless you. God's love to each and every one. Amen. Bye-bye.